Hello and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I am Connor Williams and I am joined here by Cal Brannan. Cal, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you, mate. Nice to see you too.
Not too bad. So I think we start today with the big news, which is Lucien Favre. He's been linked with Crystal Palace and supposedly Everton. I wondered if what your thoughts were on that situation.
Well, it seems to be a lot better than Rafa, especially with the stuff now saying that Rafa, isn't going to join. I don't know. He's got a good reputation. I'm pretty sure he did good with Mönchengladbach. If I remember, he was the manager of the Nice teams with Balotelli and Ben Arfa. I'm pretty sure that was him. He's got a good reputation. Dortmund didn't end very well, but he plays some decent football. And in the end, it's probably much better than someone like a Rafa because Favre's going to come in and instantly want to take a project up, unlike Rafa, who probably would have been 2 or 3 years and then we get rid of him for someone more progressive.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he does. I think he does very well as well with teams that maybe on. I think he overperforms sometimes with certain teams. Like you said, his Nice team and his Mönchengladbach team were very good. Dortmund just didn't work out for him, which is unfortunate. But I don't think one bad job is enough to see him as to downgrade his career. And like you said, I think he's a lot better than Nuno. For Benitez, sorry. For one, I don't think he splits the fan base quite as much, which is a major negative of Benitez, is how much the fans didn't, a large amount of us didn't want him. But he seems to be very good. His style of play, he likes to play quick, attacking football, possessive football. And I feel like that's the type of thing that could really get Goodison Park rocking.
Yeah, definitely could. And in the end, it's, people complain, but even at Dortmund, he still picked up, about 2 points a game, which in the end isn't bad. He's winning most of his games to get those averages. But obviously, Dortmund have much bigger expectations than a Nice or a Mönchengladbach. Mönchengladbach as well, for anyone who doesn't watch Germany, a team very similar to Everton, a team that had a lot of history, 70s, 80s, I think, as well, similarly to us. But now a team that have, they have a few bursts every now and again. You've seen it under Marco Rose. I believe they finished towards the top 4, in the top 4 this year. But, they have bursts and then they'll kind of like go back to where they're expected, 6th, 7th, maybe a 5th or 4th every now and again. But they're really around that, sort of, I'd say between 5th and 8th, which is what we expect really. And he was able to overperform with a team like Mönchengladbach, with a team like Nice, who are probably similar to us in size, in comparison to the French league as well. So he's used to taking clubs this size. I don't think he's as used to the money that we can provide, because we can probably provide even more money than Dortmund did when he was the manager there. So I think that might be new to him, and maybe that's a good thing of having Brands around. But I feel like it's a good appointment, and in the end, it's something that will help us, and it's a risk worth taking.
Yeah, I agree. And I was looking then at his win ratio, and he's never had a win ratio of less than 40%, which is, quite impressive in itself. And also, to be fair, in the run of Dortmund that we said, he actually won the DFB Pokal Cup as well. So although it might not have been a great season in Dortmund's eyes, he did provide silverware for them.
Yeah, well, in the end with Dortmund as well, it's not like when he left, they were like towards the bottom of the Bundesliga. It's not like that's just Lucien Favre. Look at Klopp. When Klopp was Dortmund manager before he left, I'm pretty sure they were bottom of the Bundesliga for a period of time. So it's not like it makes him a bad manager, because if we were going off that logic, then Jurgen Klopp's an awful manager. So, it's not something that we should be getting our hopes, dashed, or we're going to hire Favre. He was leading Borussia Dortmund, of all teams, to a possible relegation when Jurgen Klopp did the same thing. And, what happened to Jurgen Klopp? An awful season at Dortmund, came over to Merseyside, and look what he's done with the Reds. So, maybe that's why we're thinking about hiring him, the same sort of career trajectory, hoping he can do something like that with us. But yeah, he's a good manager. He plays good football, so I'd be happy with him to come in.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy with him as well. We were obviously joined by our viewers here. You've got Stephen Richardson saying he actually thinks that we might be waiting for Roberto Martinez. And that brings me on to something that's quite interesting. Obviously, the news broke today that Tottenham are potentially looking at it's either going to be Graham Potter or Nuno. And obviously, Nuno is heavily linked with us. At one point, the media were basically saying it's a done deal. It brings me on to a good point of if they do get Nuno and Favre goes to Crystal Palace, it leaves Everton in quite a tough spot of who they go with next, because the media are reporting that the favourites from the board were Benitez, Moyes before his contract signing was rumoured to be one of the favourites, Martinez, and Nuno Santo. So it does beg the question, what's next for Everton if we lose out on Favre and Nuno now?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, to be completely honest, I don't care at all what the board think. The board have shown, besides, I can't even give anyone exceptions, but the only one who gets an exception is Brands. The rest of them do not know what they're talking about. Ken Wright wanted Moyes back when he just signed a new deal. Moshiri wanted Benitez. Benitez at Everton, I said this in the last one on, is ridiculous. Why would we do something like that? But even if not, I think what the problem is with all the managers we're being linked with is we're too scared to pay a compensation fee. We've got plenty of money. We're a club with a lot of money. We can pay a compensation fee. I think that's the big problem with Galtier, is we're not willing to offer Galtier the money he wants, even though, let's face it, we would be 100% offering him less than what we paid Ancelotti, so I don't understand why it's a problem. But even if I look here, the names that's still available, Fonseca, Potter, I'd take Martinez over most of the names that the board want anyway. Favre, if he doesn't go. There's still Conte, which is, don't get me wrong, it's out there. There's Ralph Rangnick. There's, if we have to get desperate, Eddie Howe at least play some decent football. Someone said here we're not a club with money. We clearly are, because look how much we were paying Carlo Ancelotti. You know what I mean? There's clearly got to be some money somewhere if we can pay Carlo Ancelotti that much money, or if we can have this summer where we can go out and sign a backup striker, and we can make all these signings. Clearly, there's some money to pay for a manager, and if we have to take out some of the transfer funds to get a top-level manager, then that's worth it in the end, because a top-level manager will bring in top results for us.
Yeah, and it looks like we will certainly get some money. Obviously, Moise Kean to PSG looks like that's almost certainly going to happen. Whether we entertain the loan idea they've got or not, that almost certain looks like he won't be an Everton player for much longer. And that's, I think the rumours are that we want about 30 million for him. So that's money coming back in, that even if, I think Galtier's compensation was rumoured to be 10 million, but today it's heard that Nice are going to pay 2 to 3 million for it. That's nothing of that transfer budget, and 2 to 3 million is not a lot for us as a club either. Like you've just said, I think we are still a club with money. We spend extortionate amounts of money on players in the summer, every summer as well. Even when you hear that we're going to have a quiet one, we tend to spend quite big in it. I think the days of Everton being big, spending well are well and truly on their way. And I agree. I think if you can, spend a little bit more on a manager, and maybe not so much on transfers, if the manager's good enough, I think you'll probably save money. But yeah, it is interesting. Like you said, I just want to remind everyone who's watching the stream, don't forget to like, comment, and also go follow me and Cal on Twitter and the Toffee Blues. We do polls regularly on the Toffee Blues as well. Favre was on it today. A lot of the fan base seems to be really keen on him, which is a good sign. Obviously, we mentioned Benitez, and I agree with you. I think Benitez at Everton's awful. But I think it's nice to see the fans group round one specific manager.
Yeah, it does. I think it's one thing is we're so happy with Favre because it's not Rafa. Like, in the end, I'm one of the people who believe that it was just TalkSport. Moshiri getting in TalkSports here and getting him to see how the fans would react to Rafa. I think there's always been considerations, but I feel like he wanted to see how the fans would react first, because, people were saying it was like a split reaction, but it wasn't. If you look on the Twitter polls that you lot did and stuff like that, most of the fan base was against Rafa joining, and it's completely understandable why. Because, like I said it on the last one, most of my problem wasn't even the fact that he's an ex-Red. It's just the football he plays. There's no vision for the future with Rafa. And, is Rafa still the same guy we saw at Liverpool or even Newcastle? Look at his win rate in China. And then you come to Favre, someone who actually wants to be progressive, and it may cost us results sometimes, but I'm much happier to lose a few games if we're progressing forward than sit and play for as many 0-0 draws or 1-0 wins as possible.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. For me, I was the same. It wasn't so much his links with Liverpool or the small club comment. It was, I just don't think he was the man. He's the manager that, a lot of people who were saying pro Rafa think he is. And also, like you said, the football. I think especially after the last couple of years, I think I don't want to say deserve, but I think the fans would want to see good attacking football, fast football. quick in transitions, which even this year under Ancelotti, we were too slow in transitions for my liking. You know, the ball wasn't, and if the ball was being pumped up, it was pretty much a long ball for quite a lot of the games, and hoping Calvert-Lewin could grab hold and do something with it. So the idea of having somebody who plays, you know, possessive build-up, fast football to the feet is quite exciting. Obviously, Lucas Griffiths is saying there about Palace fans really pushing for Favre, which I can understand. We've just said, you know, he would fit Everton quite well, and he's overperformed with a couple of teams. I just want to get your thoughts on if you were Lucien Favre, surely we're the more attractive job offer.
Yeah, 100%. Because Palace have got 15 players running out of contracts as well that they're not even positive if they can get back. Like, yeah, I understand it frees up wage budget and Palace may give him more freedom because I don't believe Palace have a director of football, so it would just be Favre, do what you want. But I can't imagine there'd be many clashes between Favre and Brands because even if you come, you know, the signings Brands made for us and the signings Favre makes, I feel like they have very similar interests and it also broadens up our scouting horizons. So I don't know. I just feel like Favre would be stupid to pick Palace over us, to be completely, because, you know, it's no disrespect to Crystal Palace fans, but, you know, it's Everton here and then Palace aren't even on the screen. You know, let's face it, they're not really, when you think of top level clubs or even Premier League clubs, they're one of the last names that come up, thanks Irwin. They've got Dougie Friedman as a director of football, but I still think Favre would be offered much more freedoms with Palace than he would with Everton. But at the same time, the job here is a much more exciting prospect, new stadium, more money, some fantastic players in the club already. So I really feel like Favre, if he has to pick, would choose us. But so I just, like someone's put here, Jason's put here, Favre may regret going there because in the end, it might not be, Palace could go down and it won't even be because Favre's, you know, a bad manager. It's because what else can they do? I don't think Eze is going to be in much of next season. He's got a long-term injury. Zaha's trying to get out again. All these players running out of contracts, you know, 15 players might run out of contract, will run out of contract. But if you bring 5 good ones in, what change is that going to make? Because you're still losing 50 players and a lot of players who've been in with Palace for such a long time. So I just don't see there's any way Favre picks Palace over Everton unless they offer him an extortionate amount of money.
Yeah, I agree. I've said a couple of times on here, especially, you know, with Benitez, because part of me wondered why he'd want to come when he was, you know, it was quite obvious the fan base didn't want him. But I said on it, and with Eddie Howe pushing for the job, we are an attractive job to have, especially if you're out of a job at the minute, because we will give you probably a long-term contract knowing us. You know, we pay quite well wages. And as we've seen with managers in the past, even if we do end up sacking you, we tend to pay quite big compensation clauses for these managers. So from a financial business side, we're actually a really attractive job offer. But I agree with you. And also, I think Palace have got one of the most aging squad. They've got to be one of the older average squad ages.
It's the oldest if all these players stay in contract.
So Palace need a massive rebuild. Like, I know people say we need a bit of a clear out, and we do need a clear out, but our rebuild's nowhere near as big as Palace's is going to have to be if they want to even stay, like you said, even if they want to stay in the Premier League. I think Palace could be in real big trouble next season. So hopefully he picks us. But at the end of the day, it comes down to if we push for him. And a prime example of this is Gaultier. Apparently, although the board have said to be keen on him, apparently we've not shown any real intent for him. Do you think he is one that could cost us looking down the line? One that we'll regret?
I don't know if it's one we'll regret. I feel like it's one we'd have liked to have because in the end, him, even if he goes and wins the French league again, that didn't mean he was going to come to Everton and win anything, you know. It's the idea of it's something new, it's something exciting. It's, you know, it's bringing that manager in who may not have experience in England, but he's also got experience rebuilding a club or building up a club with little to nothing. And even if he signed us, the amount of players from Lille we could sign with that, with what they need, you know, so many people who want to leave. There's Renato Sanchez, who's literally the perfect midfielder for Everton for what we need. You know, there's players like Bamba, there's, you know, Zeki Çelik, who hasn't been really good for Turkey, but it's impossible to be good for that Turkey team this Euros. So there's so many players in that Lille squad. You know, Somare is someone we missed out on, but he's kind of similar to Doucouré, so it might not be the end of the world. But they've got a good squad with a lot of good players who we could bring in. Or even at the same time, you know, it's looking at him. He had they conceded like only 20-something goals with a 37-year-old Jose Font in defence. Imagine what you can do with Ben Godfrey or Yerry Mina or Michael Keane, or even if we sign a new centre-back. In the end, I feel like we've got the core for a really good squad there. And I feel like if we just push Galtier and be like, look, we really want you, you're number one. And then even if we go behind Nice's back to Lille and say we'll pay some more compensation, and then all it is convincing Galtier to join. But I don't think it's going to be him. I think it'll be a real surprise if it is one of him. But also one thing I've seen is, you'll know what I'm talking about. There was the candidate list of 8 managers, and there was only 6 names on the list. Part of me weirdly thinks it's one of the managers who's not been named yet, and the club's purposely trying to keep something quiet, and then they're kind of leaking names out. I don't know if the club, to be honest with you, I don't know if Ablode's smart enough to do that, and I'm just giving them too much benefit of the doubt. But I do think it's really strange that 2 managers have been kept airtight, silent. No one knows who these 2 managers could be. I feel like there's a reason to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously you mentioned it before as well about the Benitez, whether it was leaking out for fan reaction. And I actually said, similar to my dad, I was like, I'd heard rumours, that it was, almost like a ploy. But then I was like, I don't know if our board is smart enough and that, savvy to do that. But I am quite curious on what the other 2 names are. And when you look at the list, a lot of these managers, and there are a lot of the usual suspects, like David Moyes has been, since he's left, is nearly always linked with us when this job comes available. Roberto Martinez has had his go here. It's sort of like, the same sort of people being rumoured for it all the time. But I'd quite like us to go abroad, maybe, and not go for quite a Premier League proven safe pair of hands. For me, I like one of my favourite ones, which is a bit of a shout, is Marcelo Gallardo from River Plate. But obviously, there's the risk of if he can come over here and do similar.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of the Marcelo Bielsa thing, isn't it? No one really knew about Bielsa at first because he was the international manager with Chile and Argentina. These managers are worth a punt, and I don't know how. Does it work similar to the players where he'd have to get a work permit to work over here as a manager anywhere? Because I can imagine hiring managers works the same as the players, where they have to get a work permit if they're coming from South America.
Possibly, and I think that could be one of the problems that causes it further down the line. Obviously, Erwin Koeman's just said here he thinks Moyes was one of the other names on that list, and Fonseca is the other. Fonseca would be a great shout, but I'm a little bit worried that it's a similar problem to why he turned down Tottenham, which is he gets better. Apparently, it's due to his tax benefits in Italy. So I think the only way that we'd be able to go around that is if we compensated more money. Yeah, which is, obviously Daniel Levy's probably said he's not willing to do. And I don't know if Moshiri and Kenwright, rate him as much to go out and do that as well. But it's certainly interesting. Out of curiosity, who would your ideal manager be for the job?
Well, if I had to be realistic, it would be... I think it would be... I'm going to still say Galtier is kind of realistic, but I feel like if we just do the right thing, then it is just give Lille a bit more compensation, tell Galtier we're all in on him, and then that. If I had to be completely unrealistic and I could take anyone I want, it'd be probably Brendan Rodgers, because, I said this on the other one, though. Graham Potter also interests me because it's the sort of, he's managed these middling clubs, Brighton and Swansea. They just Graham Potter kind of reminds me of Brendan Rodgers for some reason. And maybe in a similar way, he could get his break in Merseyside like Rodgers did. And I feel like that's the perfect manager we need in the end. Someone like Brendan Rodgers. You don't even have to be English. Anyone who's like Brendan Rodgers helps this club perfectly. And I feel like Galtier can do that. I feel like Favre can do that. I'm not completely against Duncan Ferguson. Someone's mentioned it here, but I'd prefer if to be completely honest with you, I don't know how Everton fans feel about it. I'd just prefer if he left and went and managed a Championship or a League One team. Because in the end, he's not probably getting the experience he needs as a coach. And I don't think the board are even considering him. I feel like Kenwright might be pushing for him a little bit, but I feel like most Everton fans and even, Moshiri brands are saying, well, Duncan Ferguson's not the right manager. If you want to progress forwards, he will give us an identity. But is he tactically adept? Is he really ready for that job yet? And it might be a better thing for Dunk to go to the Championship, to go to League One, maybe even go to Scotland and get some experience there instead of taking the job here, failing. And then it's sort of like the Frank Lampard thing. Ferguson's dream job is probably Everton. It's probably us. It's a club he spent most of his career with. He loves the club. He's got so many iconic moments at the club. If he gets sacked from us, where does he go next? It's sort of like the Lampard with Chelsea thing. What does Lampard do now that he's already reached the pinnacle of his career and what he wanted within the first few years of it?
Yeah, no, I am. I'm one of those who love Duncan Ferguson to bits, but I'd love to see him get some first-hand experience, just because for me it's a risk. Everyone, to be honest, who we mention is a risk. Even the foreign managers we've mentioned, they're not prem proven, so it's always a risk. But I would like it if he went out a bit, got some experience, because like you said, this is his dream job. So if he goes somewhere and he does well, it doesn't with Duncan Ferguson, it doesn't matter how well he does. He could do wonders. If Everton come knocking because of his love for the club, he would come to us. I don't think there's ever a scenario where we'd go for him and he goes, no, I don't want to go. I think he would, and I think he would see it as that as well. I think he'd go out with the mentality of I'm earning my stripes no matter who I'm with, because ultimately I want to end up as manager of Everton Football Club. And that way I think you get the best of both worlds, because you get to see if it goes well for him, fantastic, let's go get him. But if, say now, it doesn't go well and it turns out he is better maybe as an assistant than an actual manager, there's no harm done. There's nothing lost for it. Obviously, Jason Drury said, I'd hate it if he got the job and failed and then get hated. I mentioned this a while ago on the Toffee Blues, and someone said exactly what the next comment is. I don't know if he'd get hated. I don't think you could hate him because of how much of a legend he is at the club, to be honest. I don't think it would hate him. But it would be sad if you sack him, saying how we did sack him, because I don't think you could sack him and him go straight back into the coaching staff after he's, become manager. Or if it did, it'd seem quite unreal. I don't know many, where somebody's a manager to get sacked, but then they stay in the club still. And I think that, one of those where he's not part of the club at all is going to be a sad time. But it's an interesting one. I know a lot of fans I think Duncan Ferguson splits fans more. I think he's probably 60-40 to a lot of fans I see. But, he's worth it. Brendan Rodgers, I don't think. I see David Twigg says same as you. He'd like the Brendan Rodgers, but he doesn't think he'll leave Leicester. He's a good manager.
I think Leicester are just above us now, aren't they, as well? We've got to accept it. We're still a bigger club than Leicester, and I don't care how many Leicester fans bring up we've won the Premier League, we've won 9 league titles. Football wasn't invented in 1992. But at the same time, I'd much rather be Leicester manager than Everton manager right now. And I think even most Everton fans would say, I'd much rather be Leicester boss. Look at all the all the freedoms they get. Look how good the signings are. Their scouting team, one of the best scouting teams probably in Europe, never mind just in England. So and I do think just because I feel like he would say no even if he wanted to, especially now with the Rafa stuff, because we know what Brendan Rodgers is like. He's a little bit soft. So if he saw the reaction to Rafa, I don't even think he'd want to take the risk of how we'd react. Even though, let's face it, I think we'd all love Brendan Rodgers and we'd forget the Liverpool stuff. But yeah, it's even like the ex-Real Madrid manager Zidane as the manager of Everton. Zidane doesn't know what an Everton is. Like I know we're a big club with history in England, but Zidane doesn't know what an Everton is. Let's face facts. It's just he's probably going to sit out, wait for Ancelotti to get sacked in January, and then go straight back to Real Madrid. It's rinse and repeat. And it's kind of like, in the end, we just want someone who, I don't care, unless we can get Antonio Conte locked in, and then we can give him a contract where he has to pay us if he leaves. I don't want some huge name manager. I want someone who cares. Doesn't even have to care about the club. They have to be willing to progress the club forward. And then if they want to leave in the future, if they leave and they've took us forwards, I'd be fine with it. Like, for example, if Ancelotti would have left, we would have finished 6th or 5th, maybe next season, and then went, right, Real Madrid's come up. I feel like we wouldn't hate it as much as we do, even with the things he said, because at least he's progressed us forwards. Let's face it, we've made a sideward step with Ancelotti. I don't care that we finished on 59 points. We still finished 10th. We moved up 2 positions in the league under Carlo Ancelotti. It's the thing where we need to be looking for forward steps and forward steps only. And I feel like the board won't even want to take a risk with Conte. I feel like that's why we've only heard of they'll try open talks, they'll try talk. I feel like they're trying to go for someone who they don't have to risk leaving for a bigger club.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're better off getting someone almost like you said, Potter, and I quite like Potter. I think I think I'm always interested to see how we do at a bigger club. And like in the past, I've said I don't know if I wanted us to be that test tube. I think he's a great fit. If Tottenham get him, I think he could be a really good fit for them. And I do really like him, but I agree with you. I'd like a manager like that who's still got something to prove as well. Because of the Angelotti, Conte, they don't really have much to prove because they're world class managers. But someone like Graham Potter's still got his doubters, and he's still early in his career. He's got a lot to prove and a lot of ambition left in his tank. And the same with a couple of the other managers we mentioned. As long as they've got that hunger and that willingness that they see us as not their last payday or waiting around till somebody they want comes around. If they see us as right, this is where I could make my name. And like you said, if they did and they made their name at us and then left, I'd be happy because as long as they've progressed the club and they leave us in a good condition as well, I'd be quite happy with that. Obviously, Wormy Spoons has just said there, Leicester signed Daka. I think that's a great transfer. And like you said, their scouting staff are really good. They're really on it. I'd say Leicester, just going back to what you said about Leicester, I think their squad's a very exciting squad. With the right manager as well, to be fair. But I think their squad quite right now has got the right blend of younger and older players. Yuri Tillmans looks fantastic as well. I've been a fan of him for a while. But yeah, I did see Erwin Koeman say, "Who do we think we'd get realistically?" I don't know. I think if you had to push me to it, I'd say Nuno. I think he's going to be the most realistic because I think. But if Tottenham get him, then if Tottenham get him, I don't know. I feel like Everton. I don't know. I'd hope Favre and I'd hope Galtier, but I could see it probably being, I don't know, Roberto Martinez potentially, because he's got fans in the boardroom and he's a name that's been linked throughout of all of this.
I don't know because it's like it's a new name every day. So if we're a fan, first it was Rafa, we were all panicking. Now apparently they've listened to us. Now Spurs want Nuno, and now Spurs want Potter too. And now I've not heard anything about Fonseca, so I can't say Fonseca. I think it is going to be Roberto Martinez, isn't it? I've just got a feeling that he's the one who his name's just flown under the radar. He's been mentioned, and then that's it. Everything's gone quiet. We're not hearing a new article about it every 5 minutes. I just feel like it is Roberto Martinez. Part of me has some faith that they're going to come and announce that they've agreed a deal with Brian for Graham Potter to come over to Webber. But in the end, it just stinks of Roberto Martinez, to be honest.
Yeah, that's my it was a name linked, and apparently Marcel Brands likes him now as well. And he's already had a go. Majiri clearly liked him, and Ken Wright because he had a go the first time round. And it does, like you said, there's enough. His name's mentioned enough, but not enough that like Nuno and Benitez. So it does scream like he's going to be our third option. And I can see that coming through. Philip Mason said, "Hey, I hope we get Dumfries. He looked on fire today." I think he's having the tournament of his life, and I think that's going against us massively. I know Inter Milan and Bayern Munich are after him. But yeah, do you think Dumfries? Do you think this is capable? Do you reckon we're going to get him? Or
I hope he has a good friendship with Brands because that's the only chance we've got. Inter Milan, I could kind of see us maybe beating them to him because Inter Milan has got to still sit and wait for Hakimi to sell, so it could be a thing where we pounce before Inter Milan got a chance and then we bring him in. But I feel like Bayern Munich, they don't really have a solidified right back, do they? I don't know if Pavard plays right back for them, but then they've got Sarr from Marseille who's not fantastic. The fullback they've just signed from Reading, what's his name? Is it Omar Richards? I'm pretty sure he's a left back.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I just feel like it's going to be Bayern Munich because in the end, Kimmich plays midfield now. Kimmich is arguably the best midfielder in the world right now. Why would he go back to playing right back? So I just feel like Dumfries it's a hit and hope. Dumfries is as soon as Holland had knocked out of this tournament, go bang on PSV's door because let's face it, I think what was it, 15 million? We're paying 25 now. And in the end, I'd pay 25. He's clearly proven that he can do he can create a load of chances. Even if he missed 2 massive chances for the Netherlands, at least he was creating the chances. And if we want to play some free-flowing attacking football, having 2 wing-backs like that could even then give us the luxury to move at a free at the back. And unlike the Carlo Ancelotti free at the back, well, let's face it, it was a 5 at the back, it actually gives movement for our wing-backs to bomb forward and to get stuff. And we've already got Digne, who, is arguably the best attacking fullback in the Premier League. Well, left back. Alexander Arnold's better overall attacking. But, so we've got a really solid core, and I feel like it's just about convincing Dumfries of the project. And if anyone can do that, it is Brands, who worked with him at PSV. But I just feel like Bayern are going to pip us to it, especially now that they've been brought up.
I was going to say, and Bayern were like, with Evie's right back, we seem to be linked with Bayern. We're like, because obviously we were linked with Selig, then that died off, but then we were linked with Max Aarons for quite a lot of this past season. And as soon as we did, I saw the rumours that Bayern Munich were also after him. I don't know why we have decided not to go with him. I don't know why Bayern also haven't decided to go with him. And now that we're both looking at Dumfries, but it does make me worry. As good as Dumfries is, the better season he has, not even competition-wise, just the price is going to go up massively, because it is always the case in internationals. The better they have an international, the more the selling club puts on their price tag. Yerry Mina rings a bell of having a great, World Cup with Colombia, and then his stock rose quite a bit. Tom Parry says Rudy Garcia is a potential. We were linked with him earlier on, I think 2 weeks ago, weren't we? The papers were saying that he was one.
I think he might be similar to Galtier. Is he not the one who won the league with Lille when they had Eden Hazard? Was that not Rudy Garcia? I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was him. I'm positive that was him. And then I know I think, if I look here, there's Roma, Marseille. He's got big clubs on his CV, but I'm positive the time frame it's given me there, that's when Lille won the league with Eden Hazard and stuff like that, and that team. So, maybe, but at the same time, he didn't really have a good time at Lyon, did he? Lyon have just finished 4th or something. I think Lyon have missed out on Champions League, actually. Like, I don't want a manager who can't even get Champions League with, arguably the second best overall team in the French league. Lille have a really good squad, but Lille were pushed over the edge because of really good coaching. Yeah, I don't even think they finished top 4. No, sorry, they finished 4th. No. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Maybe if he plays, I haven't watched a lot of him, but I do remember that Lille side was really good at going forward. So if it is, then yeah, I'm happy to give him a chance, but I don't think he'd be towards the top of my list, no.
No, I was going to say, he looks, again, he plays, when he went to Lille, it was to replace Claude Puel, I think, and it was more because he plays attacking football. And he does, there is a slight worry, though, like you said, that, didn't get Champions League football with Lyon this season. They just missed out as well because of how the French league's qualifications are, their spots are. But, he's not, I agree with you, he's not on the top of my list, but he's certainly not one that he's one that I'd rather have than some of the other candidates that are being knocked about. Rafa Benitez being a massive one. I'd rather him than Benitez. But I feel at the moment, same with, I remember someone saying before, Favre's going to Palace. I feel like at the minute you can just never tell until they've got their scarf and they've done the photos, because it's changing massively. Like if you said it 2 weeks ago, it looked like Nuno was odds-on favourite. It looked like, according to some of the papers, we were going to announce it the Monday after. That didn't happen. Benitez last week, apparently we were going to announce him today, and that's all changed. It's moved. Some of the rumours coming from the media are moving very quickly. And Alan Myers on Twitter has said that apparently no one's rejected it because no one's been offered it. So...
Yeah. You don't know of Alan Myers, do you? You don't know what you're going to get. He's very 50-50 as Alan Myers. Sometimes he'll say something and it'll happen, and then sometimes he'll just chat some absolute waffle. I don't think anyone's been offered the job, and I feel like that's kind of where the problems are coming in, because coaches are looking at it and be like, well, am I going to get the job then, or is it between me and 7 other people? But in the end, I don't think it's going to be Rafa, to be completely honest with you. I feel like the club have seen the backlash, and a board's driven to work and seen someone called Rafa a fat cop-out. You know what? And they're like, right, probably a bad idea. But at the same time, do I want Nuno? Not particularly. If Nuno can come and deliver Pedro Neto on a plate, then I'll take him. But besides that, it's the football was all right before this last season. And to be fair to him, it was very injury prone season. You know, we saw the Jimenez incident, Neto go out. You know, everyone in that Wolves team seemingly had a bit of an injury at one point. But yeah, if he wants to bring over Pedro Neto and Adama Traore, then listen, he can come. I'll happily drive him to Goodison Park myself, but you know, that's not the point. I don't think it's going to be Nuno. I feel like Nuno's going to go to Spurs because I feel like Spurs are just going to cave, let him bring all his coaching staff in. They're going to say, here you go. You know, you're going to have a lot of money when Harry Kane leaves. And then he's going to go sign Jimenez or something like that. And I just feel like it's much more likely Nuno to Spurs now than Nuno to Everton. And in the end, I wouldn't complain if he went to Spurs. It wouldn't kill me at all. I'd be happy if he went to Spurs, to be honest.
Yeah, I wasn't completely sold on him either. I'm looking through now. A couple of people are saying, Wormy Spoons is saying Rafa would be better than Martinez, but a couple are saying they'd have Roberto Martinez back, which would be an interesting one. I liked him when he was with us. He seemed to really get the club and the city. I watched the documentary the BBC had on him the other day in his time in Belgium, and the way he works is quite interesting. I can see why Marcel Brands likes him. When you watch stuff like he's a man that tries to play a philosophy and he was saying how stats are important and statistics and data, and he was like, data doesn't drive your argument, but it supports your argument type. He's very, that scientific type of manager who uses scientific approaches, a bit like Potter, and Potter was under him at Swansea, so you can kind of see, that type of attitude and philosophy to football. I mean, Martinez, I don't know, part of me would be like, yeah, but then part of me is the worry that, it didn't end well for him. What happens if he picks up where he left off? Phil Jones has said Eddie Howe. I cannot explain how much I don't want Eddie Howe.
It's the defence. You just know what's going to happen. It's like, we'll have one season and we'll finish 6th under him in our first season, and we'll be like, oh my God, this is it. This is the man. And then we'll finish 15th next season, the season after, and concede 70 goals. It's just, I don't think he knows how to properly set up a defence. And, someone's just put here, Martinez lost the dressing room. It's a different dressing room now. There's a few players. Is there? When Martinez left, did Sigurdsson join in Martinez last season?
It's only Seamus that's surpassed them all, isn't it?
It'll be just Coleman, won't it? Because the first season where we really got money was Coleman, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then after that we just went out and spent loads on number 10s.
Yeah,
just for the sake of spending them.
Rooney. Yeah. So to be fair, I'd take him. I'd give him another chance. I said it. I think he's improved. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's international football," but listen, that Belgian team seems to love him. He's still got a really good relationship with Lukaku. He seems like everyone in that Belgium team is happy. Eden Hazard might be a bit injury prone, but he's happy to sit on the bench. Eden Hazard's happy to sit on the bench under him, so clearly he's doing something right. So, I think we can't really judge Martinez off 2 seasons when I think he's improved. We've got a completely different dressing room and the club's in a completely different state, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we've got money now, and I don't think, obviously, I was speaking to people I know, Sport Everton, we're on about Martinez and, some of the transfers. What was mentioned is some of the players he brought, Aruna Kone, Alcaraz. McCarthy's a good one, so I'm not going to say McCarthy in those names because I actually quite like James McCarthy does. But, you got to remember at the time, we didn't have a lot of money. It's not like we have the money we had now, and he went, I'll still go and raid Wigan. He went with what he's comfortable with on a budget, which, to be fair, if you're on a budget and your players that you entrust to go in your budget, I can sort of see his motive behind it at the time. But I agree. This Belgium team seemed to really love him. Like I said, I watched the documentary, and Lukaku really likes him, and he's got them all doing coaching badges, even if they don't want to pursue it, just so they know. They have that thought process behind what he asks of them and what the opposition do when they change shape and stuff. So he seems to be a man that really, is wired well to football. But he's also spent 15 million on Nias.
Every manager has bad transfers, though, don't they? You know what I mean? It's like I can guarantee you now. If I go to Google, I search Pep Guardiola transfers, I can find an absolute clanger of a transfer within 30 seconds. There we go. Every manager makes bad mistakes. Hey, wait a minute. If I sort it by fee, I scroll down. They paid £40 million for Nathan Ake. They paid 27 million for Danilo, 16 for Claudio Bravo, 16 for Nolito. You know, Pablo Moreno for 9 million. Who? You know what I mean? It's like every manager has stinkers. And don't get me wrong, 15 million on the ass is awful. But we also have a director of football now who can guide Martinez and be like, right, no, look at this. Because if Martinez is sat and willing to listen to the stats, if Brands comes, shows him a stat sheet of a player like Nias, and he sits and reads it and goes, oh, well, that's probably a bad idea. In the end, now we have someone who can work with Martinez to make sure we don't make those mistakes, because every manager has a stinker. Because, you know, if I even just Google now Roberto Martinez transfers while he was the Everton manager, you know, like you said, McCarthy was really good until the injuries. I remember McCarthy being unreal for us, you know. He made 24 signings at Everton, and yeah, maybe Oumar Niasse and Aruna Kone were some of them, but Romelu Lukaku was also one of them, you know. In the end, Romelu Lukaku is arguably the best player that's played for our club in the past 20 years. You know, maybe Baines, Seamus Coleman when he was at his prime, Tim Cahill. But in the end, Lukaku's up there. He's the top goal scorer for our club in Premier League history. You know, they're not all good. And I'm scrolling through here and I remember some of these and I'm like, how did we manage to, you know, sign some of these players? Because it wasn't as good as we think, you know, even like, but Mason Holgate for £2 million, James McCarthy, Deulofeu, who he wasn't consistent, but I love Gerard Deulofeu. Yeah. I loved Gerard Deulofeu when he was at Everton, and I will not listen to any Deulofeu slander. You know, it's not the best, let's face it, but in the end, Gareth Barry, Romelu Lukaku, James McCarthy, you know, Mason Holgate, he clearly knew with certain players, but at the same time, he wasn't the best with some. I'm pretty sure he brought in like Tarashaj and stuff like that as well, who just Besic and stuff. But in the end, it's not like those players didn't look good in their leagues. He had to go out and find bargains. So yeah, going to the Swiss league and stuff like that. What do you expect if we don't have much money to spend? You've got to go to these lower leagues, you know. Coleman's here said McGeady, but yeah, McGeady was a bad one. But I think that we signed McGeady. Didn't we sign McGeady after Deulofeu left? I think we just signed McGeady to take the excitement factor over. But yeah, in the end, even McGeady looked like he had some promise before. But I feel like it's just now that he's got someone helping him, I feel like he'll be much more astute in the transfer market. And with a lot more money, it means we can sign more high-profile players where we can gather more data instead of just, you know, goals and assists and stuff. I feel like he has, you know, he strided forward as a manager and he's gotten a lot better. You know, there's a reason he's still Belgian manager. And I don't even think Belgium underachieving is mainly due to him. I think it's just due to the players not having a complete winning mentality, even with players like Eden Hazard and Kevin De Bruyne. I feel like, because let's face it, if Belgium win the Euros, everyone will then be saying, bring Roberto Martinez back, bring Roberto Martinez back. Roberto Martinez has come out and said, I think it was privately to someone, and then it got put out that he would be happy to come back. So if the guy's saying, oh yeah, I'll go if I win the Euros with Belgium, I'll still come back to Everton. Clearly the guy cares about the club then. And in the end, that's what we need. Someone who cares about the club and wants the club to progress forward. If we're not going to get someone really progressive, it needs to be someone who at least cares and won't just be like, walk out at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah, I always got the feeling he quite loved us, and I get the feeling he was quite hurt when he lost his job. Eugene McEva here said, would you take Wayne Rooney? No, I don't think I would. I get where the idea is coming from, but I think he's lucky to keep his job at Derby this season, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I think that might be one where sentiment would come back and bite us a little bit.
Yeah, well, I attend Derby University, so I have to watch a lot of Derby County, and it's the sort of Jose Mourinho, if I speak, I'm in big trouble thing. No, let's just say no to Wayne Rooney. No, I wouldn't even say yes to Wayne Rooney if I was another championship club, to be completely honest with you. I'm just going to leave it there.
We've got definitely not Martinez and Howell. Don't see them working with Ferguson. If I believe it, not. Ferguson is due to be the future and we can't lose him. I mean, this was one that was interesting. I think Martinez would, in the same way I think he'd work with Brands because he seems to be mature and he gets the club. So I think I think anyone who comes and turfs out Duncan Ferguson purposely would be a silly move because of how the fans would react to that. But I did see that, and it was paper talk that I think apparently was rumored to be not true in the end. But Gaultier, one of the problems with him was that he wanted to bring in his own assistant, and that left Duncan Ferguson in a tough spot. I mean, Duncan Ferguson's position in the club is a strange one, I think, because he's not going. I don't think they could. I don't think anyone's going to turf him out. I think he's going to stay there unless he leaves on his own choice, like you said, to go get some first-hand managerial experience, or if we do put our eggs in his basket and then he leaves, whether it's probably, unfortunately, through sacking at some point, because he's not going to manage us till he retires.
Yeah, I think Duncan Ferguson and Roberto Martinez get on fine. Roberto Martinez is the guy who apparently called Duncan Ferguson up to be a first-team coach in 2014. It's clearly, he trusts him, and maybe they had a bit of a falling out, but in the end, they're adults, you know what I mean? We all sit and we picture Duncan Ferguson as this big, angry, monster of a man who's passionate about the club. But if he comes and sees how passionate Roberto Martinez is, he's going to be like, even if they're the problems, he's going to be like, right, well, we can work this out and we can go again. Because in the end, Duncan Ferguson is going to put the club before any sort of weird personal dislike that he might have with Martinez, if that's true even.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's, I think they're all adults, and I think at the end of the day, they're probably mature. Ashley Williams is the worst Everton signing.
Oh, he's up
there. Yeah, he's a tough one. I saw someone saying Happy Father's Day yesterday and shared a picture of the Lyon game, which I was there. I was a couple of rows back on the Gladys Street with my family when that happened, and that was an Ashley Williams bad call as well that started all that off. I don't think they will be saying that. I think a lot of Evertons just won't want it. Yeah, Erwin Koeman, that's a great point. I know a lot of Everton fans who are, saying they don't want him because of his past. I think he's on about Roberto Martinez here. Yeah. But like Carl's just said, though, I've seen a lot of people. Belgium are one of my favourites for the Euros, and I've seen a lot of people agree with, say the same thing. And I saw Spurs were linked with him at one point, and Spurs fans were saying they don't want him, but the same Spurs fans were saying Belgium are their favourites for the Euros. Which is, a mad concept in itself. I think it's not from the realms of impossibility that he's gone on to manage Belgium, and it's actually matured him as a manager, because we were his biggest, and we still are his biggest club that he's ever managed.
By a mile.
Yeah, and I think if he matures and comes back, also a bit of this, you've got to think realistically, it's slim pickings if we hold out much longer, you know what I mean? We don't want to run the risk of, it getting to this like a week before pre-season and we've still got no idea what's happening. Gerwin Griffiths asks what's happening with Nuno. According to TalkSport, I think it was, him and Graham Potter are the 2-horse race for the Tottenham job, so we could lose out. I think it was TalkSport that announced it.
Yeah, but I don't believe TalkSport, especially after all the Rafa stuff.
I was going to say, if you believe TalkSport, though, we've also, Nuno was announced 2 weeks ago and Benitez was announced today, if you believe TalkSport. So, take everything with a pinch of salt.
Oh, Spurs is weird. Spurs is right now the odds-on favourites are Graham Potter and Roberto Martinez.
Oh, wow.
So all these Spurs fans who are complaining, you might have to deal with it. But at the same time, I just think in the similar circumstance, someone put it here, Gerwin put, Martinez thinks he has unfinished business at Everton. And, unfinished business drives a man, really, it drives him. And so if he's clearly thinking, I could win the Euros with Belgium, massively increase my stock, but I still want to go back to Goodison Park to prove a point. This is the same guy who won an FA Cup with Wigan. I'm pretty sure it was against Man City.
Yeah, it was. They played him off the park as well, if I remember rightly. McManaman had a brilliant game for them.
Yeah. Look at Callum McManaman. I think that's Steve's kid's name. I couldn't care, to be honest. I think it's Callum McManaman. He made Callum McManaman look ace, tearing Vincent Kompany to shreds, tearing Zabaleta to shreds, Kolarov, whichever side he plays on, I don't care. But, you know what I mean? So he's clearly got some talent as a manager. Look at this Belgium team. Belgium looked down and out against Denmark, and then all of a sudden, he made one tactical change, boom, the team woke up. And then, people might go, well, it's only Denmark. Denmark are a solid team, Yeah. The stuff may have happened to Christian Eriksen, and it's awful, but they're still a good team, even without Eriksen. And they showed by the fact that they scored, I think it's now the quickest goal in European Championship history against Belgium. So, and they came back for that. You know, Belgium could. I don't think Belgium will win it. I think Belgium are semi-finals and out. But at the same time, he can't get on the pitch and do stuff himself. If the team's playing well, which they are, then he's doing a great job. And Belgium's defense is awful. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Alderweireld's still a good centre-back, but he's clearly declining. Boyata, I'm pretty sure Hertha Berlin have just finished, 16th after spending a load of money. And Vertonghen, he's still, Vertonghen's a bit iffy now too. So it's not like they've got a load of real good defenders. They don't. So Belgium are just naturally going to concede goals if Thibaut Courtois can't save them, and that's just how it works. So I am happy for Martinez to come back. He isn't one. He's not my favourite. He's who I think will come back. He's not my favourite, but I'm not going to come and then slate him and say, no, this isn't what we want, like the whole Rafa situation, because we've got to give him a chance first in the end. With Rafa, I can understand not giving him a chance because of his past and, the Liverpool stuff, the win record in China. But Roberto Martinez also was the guy who managed us to fifth, in my opinion, arguably the most entertaining season of my life being an Everton fan was that fifth place finish. Because I'm pretty sure we were only pipped by a point by Arsenal because we had a bit of a late season collapse. But at the same time, look at the football we were playing, it's in the end, you've just put Martinez can't defend Wormy, and I get your point. I've just mentioned it, but he's not got one really good centre-back to deal with. Toby Alderweireld's not that centre-back anymore. Vertonghen's not that centre-back anymore. Boyata, he's not very good. I don't know why he's still in the squad. In the end, his defensive structure might not be the best, but then there's also an easy way to fix that. Bring in a coach with a really good defensive mind who can help him. It's not just the manager who manages the team. The coaches are involved, the assistants are involved, everyone's involved. If you bring in a coach with a really good defensive mind, and I'm not the best with coaches, so I can't, pick out a name and go him, but they will be out there and they will be probably willing to join Everton. I bet you can go find one in the Championship, a really good defensive coach who could come into Everton and help Martinez a bit with his defensive structures. But in the end, if Martinez joins, the last thing we should be doing is complaining and moaning. We should get behind him and at least give him a chance. And if he doesn't impress, then we can start moaning and complaining. Because in the end, it's Roberto Martinez is much better than Rafa Benitez and some of the other names on this list, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, it's getting to the point where I agree with you. It's not my first choice. I always liked him at Everton. Like you said, I've got fond memories. I remember when he put Lukaku out to the right. I think it was against Arsenal. It changed the game. It was a tactical. Everyone was raving about it tactically. He's not my first. If you ask me my first choice, I'm a bit like you. And like Mr. Alex has said here, I'd go for Favre or Gaultier. But you got to be realistic. Yeah, we can't get those. The list is getting shorter, and I'd rather Martinez than Rafa Benitez. Flash the Originals put Potter, the big man, Bob Martin, but no Nuno. I said no Nuno. You have to admit Everton's communications are awful. I mean, a lot of it is he say, she say, and a lot of it is paper talk. And I do think that, the problem with paper talk is a no club statement is that paper talk causes a frenzy, doesn't it? Like apparently no one's been offered it, but the media have had us believe now that we've had two people ready to sign a contract that have just, pulled out at the last minute. And I feel like, like I said, until they're wearing a scarf, you can't believe anything really that's reported. You've got to take it all with a pinch of salt. I think there is some truth behind the names linked. I think the names linked, they're linked for a reason, which is why we've said, realistically, we could see Martinez because he's linked, but he's not linked heavily enough, and it's those type of managers that end up getting the job, the ones that aren't, he's got a contract and he just got to put his pen to it. It's the ones like that end up getting it. Do we think we got rid of Martinez too soon? No, I think, like we were saying, I think he's gone back and learned a lot now, which is why we're entertaining the idea of him now. But I don't think we got rid of him too soon.
It was the protest as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think to be fair, sometimes a break away from something and then going back is good for some people. Yeah, I was going to say, like you said, I think he's probably going to go back to Madrid. Either that or that he's waiting for the French job. They're the only two jobs I could really see him wanting. To be honest, I don't think Zidane would want to come to us because I think ultimately he's got the jobs he wants and he only wants them. Why was Martinez sacked under Najiri? What happened for him to be sacked? We were struggling. I'm going to be honest, Gerwin. He was sacked because we looked like we were in a little bit of a struggle. And ultimately, once the fans are fed up as well, it's you're looking down the barrel of a gun, really, aren't you? And we did towards the end. I must admit, we did look a bit. We looked a bit worrying. We looked on the ropes. But people can change. Like that's what we're arguing, though. Like he might, people can change. They can improve. He was awful towards the end. Yeah, Erwin Koeman's just said it there. Towards the end, it was dire straits. To be honest, Big Nos has put Graham Potter for me. He's done brilliant at Brighton on a limited budget. They play great football. He's young, ambitious, and would bring us stability. Yeah, I think we've fully agreed for those reasons as well. He's hungry. He's got something to prove, and that's a great point as well. What he's got at Brighton is a limited budget. And the money Everton would provide, he could, go out and get quite a lot of good players. I think he'd do. I think the formations he sets up with that 5/3 would suit us as well. I think our squad are used to playing in it, and I think we've got the centre backs for it. And if we get Dumfries, we've got 2 sets of full backs for it as well. I think the only thing with the 5-back that gave me a bit was Seamus Coleman. Right, it's a lot for it to ask of him. But yeah, I don't know if you think the same. Potter's, would suit the squad we've got.
Yeah, 100%. It's like I said, Graham Potter to me is the closest thing to a Brendan Rodgers we can get. So in the end, if we have to pay the compensation, pay the compensation. Someone, I were mentioning managers improve. Brendan Rodgers is a prime example. Don't get me wrong, he played good stuff at Liverpool, but he left, went to Scotland, dominated in Scotland, and in the end, people might call Scotland an easy league. But Brendan Rodgers at the start of being the Leicester manager was much better at the guy who much better than the guy who finished second with Liverpool, much better as a manager. And in the end, now he's proven that he still has those tendencies for a late season meltdown, but they've won the FA Cup and they're finishing 5th. Like Leicester fans are saying that's a disappointment at the end of the season, but then they sit back and go, "Oh wait, we're Leicester. We've just finished 5th." In the end, look at it, and someone's just put they don't want our manager to get in the way of Brands, and maybe that's what's going on. Maybe Brands, because a good idea, maybe they're doing it, is letting Brands speak to the manager as well. Because in the end, we want a director of football and a manager to get along, to chug the club forward, to move us forward, to go forwards. That's what we need. And if the manager isn't going to get along with Brands, then they shouldn't join. I don't care who they are.
Yeah, I agree. I think when Nuno was obviously Nuno's problem is that he wants to bring his whole backroom staff, which I think is if I could have a crystal ball and he was here for 10 years, I'd say okay, do it. But I don't feel like he will be here for 10 years, and that's a lot of people you've got to then turf out at the end of his tenure. And it's a lot of money as well because they'll all have compensation clauses, and the club don't want to be paying them all out silly. But I think the Brands relationship's right. I think he should really be the one fully instigating the manager search as well. Apparently Benitez was one. He said that he, didn't like Benitez because of the fans. This all paid talk as well. But he said that, the fans won't like Benitez. And he said he was a little bit worried that Benitez doesn't always get on with a director of football, which obviously means for Marcel Brands, he's going to have a difficult job. And Marcel Brands is that well woven into Everton Football Club now that he's, I think he's got his opinion is heard in the boardroom. I'd hope it is anyway, because that's what we've hired him for. You know what I mean? So I think whoever works well with Brands, it needs to be an important one. And whoever Brands thinks suits Everton as well, because I think he's one of the ones who gets the fans a little bit. Obviously, I'm thinking a couple of seasons back when there was that whole thing outside Finch Farm. Marcel Brands was the one who originally came out to speak to the fans. So I think he gets Everton fans that little bit more, and he gets football most importantly. He's Dutch as well. Holland love football. I think he's I think he gets it. So we should really be aiming to try and get somebody who he likes. From the rumours as well, that his selection aren't awful. He's a big fan of Potter. There was someone else he was linked with. I think he's a fan of Gaultier as well.
Yeah.
So the people he's suggesting aren't bad people. They're quite, and they're ones that are universally, when we do the polls on the Toffee Blues, the ones that Brands mentions are the ones that surprisingly do well on the polls. I think the only exception is Roberto Martinez, but like we've discussed in this stream, that's because of how it ended. I think if we hadn't have touched Martinez and we weren't, maybe the opinions would have been slightly different. Saying if he went from Wigan straight into an international job and did well with an international job, I don't think our opinions would have been, as skewed. Terry Tibbs has said here, though, I wasn't against Rafa being manager. Obviously, after seeing the reaction of fans, it wouldn't be the best idea. But all the names mentioned, I'd have Gaultier number 1, Favre number 2, and Potter number 3. I mean, yeah, you're not the first person I've seen that wasn't against Rafa. But you have mentioned a point, a really good point. I said to you, you shouldn't have a manager who's going to split the fan base like that straight away, or one that's going to have to fight to earn at least, not even like the love. He'd have to fight just to earn a shred of respect from a lot of fans. So you're already fighting an uphill battle. You know what I mean? It's like riding up a hill in your bike on 6th gear. It's gonna be a hard task.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
I mean, I don't know. At the time, I said I don't know if it is Farhad or if it was Kenwright, but it seems really out of touch with the fan base, because I could tell you it wasn't going to go well, and a couple of other people could tell you it wouldn't go well. Whether you want him or not, I think a lot of us could agree it was never going to go down well.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
yeah, well, someone's put here. Sorry for interrupting you. If Rafa will split the fans, what makes you think that Brendan Rodgers won't? Because Brendan Rodgers is world class now. Brendan Rodgers is a world class manager. Let's face it. Someone said here he doesn't have the same baggage. What did Brendan Rodgers win with Liverpool? Do you really think Liverpool fans are going to tweet us Agent Rodgers because they beat us in the Merseyside derby, but then we finished 5th? It's like he's world class. Let's face facts, he is world class. Look at Leicester as a club size in general, and look where they are. That team has no right to be, if you look at the history, in the top 10 of the Premier League. Ranieri kind of started it, but Rodgers has really built Leicester into what we look at Leicester now as. It's a Brendan Rodgers effect on Leicester. And even with clubs in the past, he's always done well. That Liverpool defence, another one, was awful. It was Martin Skrtel and who else? I don't even remember. It wasn't Daniel Agger. That was too far for Daniel Agger. It was it Lovren?
Possibly, because Lovren's been there a while, hasn't he? I think.
Yeah.
Their defense wasn't there. It was up front that was the better. Was their shining stars, wasn't it? In like Suarez and Sturridge.
Yeah, exactly.
And then obviously Steven Gerrard running midfield. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Rafa, like Rodgers, doesn't come with the same baggage, and I also think I don't think it's about so much the baggage either. Like you put it to, it's what Rodgers is like right now. If you look at the last couple of clubs they've managed, Rodgers has done better than Benitez has. And like I get, some say, but like managers can age, and I don't just mean physically. I mean like the game can leave them behind. You could, people always say the same about Jose Mourinho. The game's left him behind. He's too defensive. From what I've seen from the last of Rafa Benitez, he's another one where the game's probably, left him behind. And Newcastle gets mentioned, but I think Steve Bruce is doing as good of a job. He's getting them similar league positions.
Just more money, though, isn't it? Like in the end, Rafa did well with Newcastle, but we're bigger than Newcastle. We should be aspiring for more than Newcastle. I don't care how many fans Newcastle have. In the end, we're still a club who, people don't like it sometimes when we talk about the past, but we've won 9 league titles, for God's sake. There was a period of time where we were the best club in the world, and people are like, oh, you're talking about the 30s. No, it was the 80s. You know what I mean? And it's where the big Everton dad memes come from. But in the end, they've witnessed a club that were at one point arguably the best in the world and were robbed of, for example, Champions League glory in an incident I'm not going to mention because that'll spark up Reds fans. So it's kind of like we should not expect league titles. I don't expect league titles, but we should at least be towards the top 6, even if it's just go back to be the best of the rest. Because are Everton even the best of the rest anymore? Are we? We're not. We're not even the best of the rest anymore, which is something we were locked down as under Moyes. And that's something we at least need to progress to becoming that. And there's still always a chance we can become a top 6 club. Look at what Leicester have done. If we can capitalise on Arsenal and Spurs falling off a cliff, I don't think West Ham are going to be nearly as good next season.
No.
I think there's a 6th place spot that opens up all under the right manager. I'm not going to predict us to finish 6th. To be brutally honest with you, even after the transfers, I'm probably going to predict like 9th or 10th. But it's very possible if everything not even if everything, if a lot of things go into place with us. That's all we need.
Exactly. Mate, I agree. I think we just need somebody with a vision that's, we're going to build towards. And like, I don't mind if we don't finish 6th next season, as long as you can see though that there is some sort of progression. Like, I don't want, and like you said, we should be aiming for the top 6. I think we should be like, I think an FA Cup or a Capital One Cup win shouldn't be too far as an unrealistic dream. You know what I mean? It'd be nice to win some trophy, but someone said here, I've just had a weird thought sitting watching the Belgium game. Is the reason Everton haven't announced a new manager because he's at the Euros and you have to wait? I mean, I know we've said though that like it seems like a realistic one because he's not spoken about enough. And like that would tie in. I don't know. Apparently the club are just trying to really take their time with this, which I think is the right thing to do. In all honesty, I know it's frustrating and I know we all want to know, but I'd rather them have sat on it for a couple of weeks than, make some real snap decision that ends up costing us and people laugh at us. Wait until they finish. It could be well. We've said, Roberto Martinez is probably the most realistic one we can see. Loads of fans were saying about Moyes before he went to West Ham, but clearly football has not passed him. No, right, yeah, Moyes, football hasn't passed him by, but I agree with you. I don't think West Ham do as well next season. I think Europe's too much for them, and I don't think their owners are going to go out and buy the depth they need for Europe.
I think football did pass Moyes by, and here's the thing: is it's not impossible for football to pass you by, but then you adapt and get back on track. It's very possible. Look at Sunderland, Real Sociedad. He looked like he'd been passed by. He analysed his own game. He analysed what he could get out of West Ham, a fast counter-attacking team that can control the ball in midfield. They have a midfielder in Souček, very similarly to Fellaini, who can get forward and score goals. And then they realised everything clicked in his head, and he was realised, right, this is how I can play. I can still kind of play how I did at Everton, but I need to adapt little things to make it fit into modern football. A higher work rate, more pressing. We were always a work rate team, Everton, but you didn't have to run as much as you do now, in my opinion. I feel like it was more physical, but I don't feel like you had to run as much, really. I feel like there's a lot more running, a lot more pressing going on nowadays. Moyes figured that out, adapted to it, and he's now being looked at as, he should have won Manager of the Year, which in my opinion he should have. West Ham finished, where did they finish? 6th or 5th?
Something like that, yeah.
6th, I think. West Ham finished 6th. They finished like 17th the year before. 16th, 15th. So in the end, it's not about football passing Moyes by. It's about, it passed Moyes by. Moyes adapted his game, changed everything around, and then all of a sudden he was back in time. It can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And Dave Walker says here that Martinez couldn't adapt. He couldn't at the time, but like we just said, managers can, it depends on their attitude. Some managers are stuck in their ways. I always think Mourinho is similar in the way he sticks to his guns. Like Tottenham played really good football at the start of the season, then it sort of reverted back to the style we're used to under him, which was, ultimately what I think cost him his job. But like I agree with you, like David Moyes is now, and when you look at West Ham, I think they're very similar in comparison to the David Moyes Everton, in that they're a team that, they look like a team that can make it uncomfortable for people to go to. And that's what we were under David Moyes. We were a team that people like big clubs didn't want to come to because we could make it really uncomfortable for them. And even if you put that little bit of doubt into the big boys of the Premier League, it plays on them and it can end up with, you getting a couple of, shall we say, underdog wins.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. And I agree with you, mate. I think he has gone and learned his craft. I don't want Martinez back. Last couple of seasons, we're bringing some more painful memories. I mean, we needs fresh thinking. I do agree with this one from Russell Jones. Needs fresh thinking. I think that the fact that the same similar names get mentioned every time this job's available, which at the minute is probably averaging at about 18 months, unfortunately, which again isn't what we need. You can't build teams on 18 months of an 18-month gap of managers. But I do think some fresh thinking's needed, because the same names shouldn't be coming up, time after time after time. Even Dave Moyes, we mentioned now, every time this job comes available, he's linked. Before Ancelotti, there were rumours that he was practically. Saw one person claiming they saw him at Preston train station, ready to go to get the train. And a lot of papers were saying that David Moyes was quite upset because he thought he was genuinely going to get the job. And that's fresh thinking. Wouldn't go amiss at Everton. Change that name up a bit, change that name list up a bit. Go abroad, go to not just Spain and Italy, but go to deeper regions and have a look at managers and have a look at what they could bring to you. Because I refuse to believe that when this job came available, I heard the number 40 applicants had applied for this job. And how true that may be, I struggle to believe that 4 of them are the same names we see every time this job's available. If 40 have applied, 4 of them, one of them's David Moyes, the other's Martinez. There's a couple of others, like Eddie Howe's linked with us quite a lot.
Just because he supports us.
And I'm not too sure how big of an Everton fan he actually is. I think he just has a soft spot for us, but I don't think I don't think he's a diehard blue. Sometimes I've heard from what I've gathered, he's got no, apparently he's got a soft spot for us, which it's cute, but it's sentiment like that's not going to win you stuff, is it? Gaultier said he's surprised only Everton inquired. He's off to Nice, I think. Yeah, I'm surprised. Well, I am surprised we only inquired, to be honest, Charlie. I don't know if that's because we're, like we said, they're taking their time and they don't want to rush anything. And if that's what he means when he said, I think he said he expected more than need today, or was his comments when they were translated. And maybe that's what it meant. Maybe he expected to be more than inquired. Maybe he expected more movement in that. I do think he is going to go to Nice. I don't want to give up hope on it, but I think he always had that agreement with Nice anyway, that gentleman's agreement. And I think if we've only inquired, he's probably looking at it like Nice is he's going to guarantee the job, whereas at Everton he's one of 8. So I'm not surprised that he's going to go for a job that he's guaranteed. Graham Potter for me, good young coach. And changing formations. Yeah, that's the bit that impresses me the most with Graham Potter. He's not stuck in his ways. I've seen him a couple of times change it up. And when he was in Sweden, I've heard he changed it up a bit. And the stuff he did at Sweden, the club, I'm going to butcher it, but it's Oosterends, isn't it? Yeah.
I think, yeah. Because I think, didn't he beat Arsenal with them in the Europa League?
Yeah, and he brought success, one of their most successful periods at their club, didn't he?
Yeah.
Which is really, and he seems like a clever guy. He went through the Open University in sports management, I think it is, or something like that. And he went and learned under a lot of managers when he was younger. He spent a lot of time at Swansea, he was saying. I watched his master, the master class, the Coach's Voices master class on him. And he's a very intelligent man who seems to just get football. Which isn't a negative. It can only be seen as a positive. I think if we went for Moyes, it'd be a backward step. We shouldn't go for a manager we've already had. Give Nuno it. He plays good attacking football. I agree to an extent with that. I don't think I think that adds with Russell Jones's saying of we need fresh thinking. I mean, I've seen stats to support though that even before this season, his football isn't always attacking football. A lot of this season, his pressing's nowhere near. It's one of the lowest in the league. But his balls into the box and his expected goals and stuff from the last 2 seasons before this season weren't fantastic. I wouldn't say. I'd say he plays good attacking football for a pragmatic coach. But I wouldn't say I wouldn't describe him as an attacking football manager. I just think on their day they look good, and his Wolves side were good. I I remember watching them at Goodison when they turned us over, and the biggest highlight I think for us was the cat on the pitch. I was there in the Gladys Street, and that was it was one of the tougher times to watch Everton. Actually, I was disappointed as well because I took my girlfriend, hyped us up, and that's what we produced. So it's one of them. But and she was more made up with a cat than the actual team. So, but yeah, I think now there would probably be a good time to end it here. I would say, guys, don't forget to like the video, follow the Toffee Blues, follow Cal and myself on Twitter. Cal, would you like to say anything to see us out?
No, you've just set it off on me. Just drop me a follow on Twitter, please, and you'll probably end up seeing my opinions on whoever we end up hiring, because I can imagine if it's not Roberto Martin, as the rumours are, it'll be at some point this upcoming week anyway.
Exactly. Well, hopefully some sort of development. It's gone a bit quiet, too quiet for my liking. But yeah, guys, don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Toffee Blues. We've got a lot more content coming out. Like Cal said, there will be ones on the new manager if he's announced this week and when he's announced, and all the rumours. And up the Toffees, like someone's put here. Stay safe, guys, and see you soon.